Have you ever asked God why He left you alone in the midst of a storm when every door seems to be slammed shut in your face? When a woman looks back and sees human promises blown away like dust in the wind, her personal efforts hitting a dead end, and loneliness surrounding her like a thick, heavy night, it's so easy for her to fall into despair. She feels invisible, forgotten, and lost within the map of her own life. But in reality, this is not a random accident. It's a meticulously established plan. It is not that God has forgotten you, but that He is drawing you into a private encounter without anyone else's interference. He is silencing the temporary voices of the world so that you can finally hear the eternal whisper of the Creator. This deadlock is not a dead end. It's a waiting room of glory. The pain she is enduring is not an enemy, but an architect, restructuring her inner strength. When a woman has no one but God, she shifts from relying on finite resources to the infinite power of heaven. She will never go back to being the fearful woman of yesterday. If your heart feels this stirring right now, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to walk this journey with us. Right now, let's uncover why having no one but God is the greatest victory you will ever win. When people depart, God creates a sacred space. Have you ever wondered why your circle suddenly feels so empty? A woman often stares at the silence of a phone that no longer rings. She counts the empty chairs where reliable friends used to sit. It feels like rejection. He remains. This is not a random act of cruelty, but a merciful cleansing of her social landscape. She begins to realize the ancient truth whispered by the psalmist, "Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me." God is thinning the crowd to reveal His own face. He allows human relationships to recede like a low tide, exposing the solid rock beneath. This isolation is not a sign that she is unwanted. It's a sacred clearing where His presence can finally breathe. He is bilocating her soul into a private audience with the King. By removing the flickering mirrors of human opinion, He makes room for His eternal light. Space is made. She is not being pushed out. She is being invited in. You are not losing your community. You are finding your Creator. Loneliness unmasks the hidden crutches of the heart. Loneliness is the most honest mirror a woman will ever face. It strips away the human crutches she leaned on for decades. In the quiet, she faces the raw ache of her hidden dependencies. She realizes she has been drinking from broken cisterns that could never hold water. Surgery of love. God is not exposing her vulnerability to shame her. He is cradling her soul while He removes her misplaced trusts. She remembers the sobering warning that cursed is the one who trusts in man. This pain is the beginning of her true healing. He is peeling back the social masks to find the daughter underneath. It is a paradoxical grace to be unseen by the world, but fully known by Him. Trust Him. He uncovers the hollow substitutes of her heart to replace them with a divine wholeness. She is moving from fragile scaffolding to an unshakable fortress. He reveals your shadows only to fill them with His glory. When the world goes silent, the soul begins to hear. When the world stops talking, heaven begins to whisper. A woman enters a frequency of spiritual existence she never knew existed. The white noise of social expectations has finally faded away. Her prayers shift from formulaic requests to soul-level communion. She finds herself in a hushed sanctuary where God's voice becomes the only melody. Listen closely. Like Elijah in the cave, she discovers that God is not always in the wind or the fire. He is in the still, small voice that speaks to her deepest fears. This silence is not a sign of His distance, but of His tender focus. As she nests in this quietude, her true identity begins to gestate in the womb of intimacy. She no longer seeks God for what He provides, but for who He is. The silence was never an absence of movement. He speaks. It was the necessary preparation for His most intimate word to her heart. His silence is not a vacuum. It is a holy conversation. God removes the crutches to make her stand. To make a woman walk on water, God must first allow her boat to sink. She often spends years leaning on wooden crutches, a stable paycheck, a partner's logic, or her own meticulous safety scripts. When these supports are suddenly stripped away, she feels the terror of a freefall. She fears the collapse. Stand still. This is not a tragedy, but a merciful liberation from the fragile things of this world. God is removing the man-made scaffolding to prove the strength of her divine foundation. She begins to understand the promise that His power is made perfect in weakness. This loss is not a sign of instability. It is a strategic uprooting of her dependency on the seen. As the crutches of human approval break, she finds herself anchored in the unshakable rock of the ages. She is no longer a captive to her circumstances. She stands. She is being trained to carry a weight of glory that no human support could ever sustain. When you lose your footing, you finally find His path. Silent obedience forms a new life. The most powerful version of a woman is often built in a room where no one is watching. In the profound isolation of having no one, she stops living for the performative piety of the crowd. Her spiritual life is no longer a public display. Hidden growth. She begins to build secret altars of prayer in the quiet hours of the night. This is the sacred gestation of her character, where her roots grow deep into the heart of God. She remembers the instruction to pray to your Father who is in secret. In this hushed sanctuary, her obedience becomes pure. It is no longer about the applause of men, but the heavenly smile of her Creator. She is developing holy habits that will survive the fiercest storms of the future. The silence is not a delay, it's a womb. Her quiet faithfulness is the invisible architecture of a destiny that the world will one day marvel at. Your private obedience is the seed of your public power. Pain becomes the teacher. Your tears are not a sign of defeat. They are the holy oil for your next anointing. When a woman suffers in solitude, she often views her pain as a spiritual prison or a sign of divine anger. She feels the heat of the trial, refiner's fire. But this is actually the sacred forge, where her purpose is being hammered into its true shape. God never wastes a single drop of a woman's sorrow. He is the divine alchemist, turning her lead-heavy grief into the gold of spiritual authority. She clings to the truth that He knows the way that I take. When He has tried me, I shall come out as gold. Her tears are not falling on deaf ears. They are being collected in heavenly bottles. This agony is not her enemy. It's her escort. It is leading her away from superficial faith and into a depth of wisdom that only the broken can possess. What feels like pressure is actually God shaping her into a new wine of grace. The fire that felt like it would consume you is actually what will clothe you in light. In solitude, she rediscovers her identity. A woman often spends her entire life wearing borrowed identities: the dutiful daughter, the tireless worker, or the perfect partner. When these social labels are stripped away by the hand of God, she feels a terrifying sense of nakedness. She looks in the mirror and sees a stranger. Who am I? This is not a crisis, but the sacred unveiling of her true spirit. God is removing the relational masks so she can finally see the original design. He etched into her soul before time began. She encounters the same God who met Hagar in the desolate wilderness. The God who sees me. He is not looking at her shattered reputation or her relational failures. He is gazing at His own image within her. This isolation is the holy mirror where she realizes she is not a byproduct of her circumstances, but a masterpiece of His grace. She moves from the fragile, people-pleasing identity to the daughter of the King authority. She is found. She is no longer defined by who left her, but by the one who stayed. You are not losing your identity. You are finally meeting yourself. Isolation builds unshakable faith. True faith is never born in the presence of evidence. It is forged in the furnace of absolute silence. When a woman has convenience store faith, she believes only when the shelves are full and the sun is shining. But when God leads her into a barren wilderness, She must learn to breathe without the oxygen of visible results. This isolation is the divine gymnasium, where her spiritual muscles are being torn and rebuilt. Faith matures. She is learning to walk by spirit sight rather than eyesight. She clings to the truth that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This season is not a spiritual drought. It is a deepening. God is teaching her to trust His heart when she cannot track His hand. She is developing a holy fortitude that does not need a human cheerleading squad to survive. Her confidence is no longer circumstance dependent. It is heaven-rooted. When the world sees a woman standing alone in a storm, they wonder how she survives. The anchor holds. She survives because she is tethered to the unseen. Your faith is no longer a feeling. It is a foundation. Loneliness is not a delay, but a birthing room. The world looks at your isolation and calls it a dead end, but God calls it a birthing room. When a woman feels stuck and forgotten by the fast-moving world, she often succumbs to the paralysis of stagnation. She feels like a discarded vessel on the shelf of life. Wait on Him. But this is not a period of inactivity. It is a holy gestation. The most significant purposes are always incubated in the darkness of the secret place, away from the prying eyes of the crowd. She is like Sarah, nesting in the impossible silence for a promise that seems long overdue. This loneliness is the sacred incubator where her kingdom-sized calling is gaining the strength it needs to survive the public eye. God is not ignoring her. He is protecting the seed from the premature exposure of the world. He is hiding her in the hollow of His hand until the kairos moment of her manifestation. When she finally steps out of the shadows, she will not just emerge. She will explode with light. She is ready. You are not being delayed. You are being birthed. When a woman reaches the threshold where she truly has no one but God, a terrifying yet magnificent transformation begins. This isolation is not a sign of defeat, but a divine strategy for dominion. It is not a season of being forgotten, but a season of being refined. The fire is holy. The silence she fears is actually her greatest weapon. Is she brave enough to remain in the stillness until the work is finished? Stop searching for a human shoulder to lean on. Stop trying to resurrect dead connections that God has already buried for her protection. Let them go. This is the moment to anchor the soul in the unseen. To ignore this divine call is to forfeit the very authority needed for her next dimension. Rise in the secret place. Stand firm. The cost of returning to the crowd is losing the whisper of the King. Leave the word chosen in the comments to seal this commitment to walk alone with Him. Send this message to one woman who is currently mistaking her pruning for her end. Give her an awakening. Hit like and subscribe to guard this spiritual fire and stay anchored in your purpose. Your greatest victory is found in Him alone.